What's up, guys? Welcome back to the review and discussion for UnOrdinary episode 342. This episode is crazy, and this episode has a lot that I want to talk about in it, so let's go ahead and get started. It starts out Farah brandishing the flame claws, and she charges at Remy and Blake. They do manage to evade, but Blake does also note that his body is still feeling heavily. Now, originally when I first read this, I did think it was kind of weird because like I brought up before, like how come Blake is getting so heavily affected when he's a high tier and obviously much stronger than those two students from before. So while I was originally skeptical of like how consistent Farah's powers were, like I mentioned before, however, one thing I did notice upon a reread, Blake is still kind of being affected. It seems that Farah, upon rereading, it seems Farah is like seemingly keeping up her ability. Like we have like the twinkles and everything that appear when she uses it in the flash. Those are seen periodically throughout the episode. So it seems this is kind of like an area of effect type thing where like it stacks continuously the longer you stay in it. And that does apply later in the episode as well. So like I said, I was kind of like a little bit like, really, like why is this, but it in context of rereading, it actually makes a lot of sense. So that could be the main reason as to why, though, and I'm not going to say could be, I'm going to say is. But throughout the episode as well, Remy seems to be as affected, not as much, but Farah is then targeting Blake first as he tries to shoot her away, but she evades his blast. Remy, of course, follows up trying to strike at Farah, but like her first match with Valerie, she does manage to get a trade-off instead. She is able to electrocute Farah, it seems, but she gets slashed in the leg as well. I'm saying this right now. They are so lucky. They lucky or smart. They are so smart for grabbing that armor, because if they are so smart that they swiped that armor, because if they didn't, this fight would be so much easier. It would be so much easier. The armor's not like negating the attacks. Like Farah's still like tearing through it, but like if Remy was in her X-ray suit, she would be dead. Anyway, but Remy then notes that she is finding it hard to focus as well. We can see that the hypnosis is starting to take a toll on her as well. But Farah specifically notes that Remy is fast, despite even her hypnosis slowing her down. This is a note that I'd like you guys to take note of, that I want you guys to keep in mind, because I want to touch on this at the end of the review. But Blake then tries to follow up again with Farah by, like, you know, she's charging up his little Kamehameha type thing. I said this in the reaction. I said this when I was talking about it with Ty, like you guys saw. Blake, you don't got time. You don't got time for the sauce, bro. You do not have time for the sauce. You can't, like, I get why he's charging it up, but like, bro, the Kamehameha, like, no, you can't be wasting time like that, bro. But so Farah, he follows up with a Kamehameha. But Farah does manage to dodge and decides to focus on taking him out first. But Blake, seeing her rush him, tells himself that he doesn't want to be the one to drag them down again. We have seen that Blake does tend to be kind of a weak link. Surprisingly, even though Ison manages to just skate by the grit of his teeth without too much damage. But Blake does take a lot of heavy hits from time to time. So he unleashes a pulse attack. I also feel like it's been a while since we've seen that from Blake. Am I crazy? I feel like we haven't seen the pulse in a long time. But he then aims another blast at her, but we of course see his sleepiness is taking effect again. He does unleash the blast on Farah, but Farah got sauce. I said this. Watching Farah fight is kind of like watching John fight. Like, she's got sauce. She's jumping around. It's like I said this in the reaction. Watching Farah fight, especially with flame claws, is like going back to Demon Claw John. It's so good. But Farah limbos out of the way. She lands on the floor and just straight like limbos back to evade it. he does manage to get her on the shoulder. She like we see like a bit of blood spurts out from her shoulder, so she does take a hit, and that's when she activates lightning. Now, it seems in this episode, she is specifically focusing on using lightning for speed, not really attacking or anything like we saw with Byron. This does lead me to think, maybe Spectre has replaced speed in their kit, or maybe different members of Ember, maybe Ember has replaced speed with lightning. But I am curious because it does seem like, but it could also be like, you know, different members using them for different things. Maybe Byron uses lightning more for attacking, but Farah's like, I'm strong enough already, I'll just use it for speed. Who knows? Who knows? But one thing that is particular about this, her lightning is green. Now, personally, I think that this could be a sign at them kind of getting closer to perfecting the conversion technology. Some people on Reddit did bring up a fair point that Farah's aura seems to be orange like her eyes in her hypnosis, so it wouldn't really make sense. But I do also want to bring up that John's ability utilizes both his black hair and his golden eyes, so I do think this could be a similar point. This could be like a similar thing where like the aura convergence is getting more perfected, so it's more closely associated with the convertees, with the convertees aura. I also want to point this out because in episode 302, Byron's lightning seems to be more blue like Remy and Ray's, but there are definitely some shots in it where it looks purple. It's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell because most of the time it definitely looks like it's just blue like Remy's. And I guess it also doesn't help that that battle does take place at night. But yeah, so when Byron was using it, there were some shots where it kind of looked purple, but in my opinion, overall, it looked blue, like how it normally does. But yeah. Hey guys, real quick, it's Editor J here. Just wanted to touch on this point right now since it's right now in the video. So as I was pulling up screenshots to include in this video, you probably have noticed that you haven't seen the screenshots of Byron's lightning from episode 302. That's because as I was doing research and for some later screenshots that I'm bringing up later in the video, as we can see here, this is Byron's lightning and it is definitely blue like Remy and Ray's. If we scroll down right here, you can notice it's kind of purplish like I brought up. However, I was also looking at episode 262 where we can see Remy using her blue lightning, and as we can see here, it also looks kind of purplish just due to the lighting and the coloring in this specific panel. So I do think that this just kind of leads more credits to what I'm actually bringing up right now, that the conversion itself is getting better. Nonetheless, an aura color matching is definitely a sign that the tech is getting more and more advanced, in my opinion. And if it is getting closer to the convertee's actual aura, I do want to pose a quick question that I'm not really going to discuss on, but I do think what this could mean. If it's getting closer to the user's aura, does that mean that it would finally be able, like, John would finally be able to catch that and mimic it? Something to consider, I think. But that's that. Like I said, I'm not going to discuss it, but it is just a question that popped in my head. Like, if it's getting closer to the original aura that John copies, does that mean that he might be able to copy even converted abilities? Who knows? You could also say that, like, Candace and Liam, their conversion, like, we clearly saw that their spectral claws were still purple like Melvin, but, you know, who knows? Anyway. Farah uses lightning to catch up to Blake and close the gap. Again, like I said, it seems like she's only using lightning for speed because she doesn't electrocute Blake or anything, even when she like lashes at him or anything. Seems like she is focusing specifically on speed. And Blake also doesn't seem to be affected by the lightning as it like swirls and like pops around him and everything. This could be a different ability as well, honestly. Some people have brought that up because it doesn't really seem to because, like, you know, it doesn't really act like the lightning we've seen. So some people have brought up, is this could be a completely different ability in that case. But one thing I do want to bring up as well, this doesn't really resemble anything we've seen mentioned in the previous list that Sarah saw back in episode 256. So I still think that this is lightning. Farah's just using it for a different thing. But she slashes at Blake, which he evades, but she expected as such, and stabs him right in the stomach. Blake, of course, getting stabbed in the stomach, Remy freaks out, but that's when we see barrier waves approaching. Arlo has arrived on the scene. Ison checks up on Blake, who says that he'll live, and Farah, seeing him back them up, calls him a traitor, and Arlo simply states that he can't go back now. Like, Arlo just says to himself, like, there's no going back, I've made my decision. He activates his barrier around them, and Blake and Remy are no longer as tired. It does seem like they are still a little bit tired, but it does seem that but they do specifically say the barrier is having a weakening effect on the hypnosis. So, honestly, I didn't not expect this from Arlo, but it was still really nice to see. It was nice to see Arlo, once again, like, Arlo just saying, like, the chips are down, I'm gonna do what's actually right. So, really cool, Arlo. Don't get me wrong, kind of a stupid play, especially after his talk with Cass, but I can't hold it against him at all because he wants to stick up for what's right. And honestly, Arlo, I respect that. Anyway, Arlo does call out Farah for being a part of Embers, stating that the public would be devastated to learn the truth. As she simply says, it's disappointing he sided with the outlaws instead of coming to the Bureau for answers. Yeah, no, why would he do that? That would just paint an even bigger target on his back. You tripping, Farah. You can't mental gymnastics a mental gymnast. Anyway, she tries rushing them again, and she slashes at the barrier with the claws. It does seem like she does manage to damage the barrier. We can see that her slash has definitely had an effect as there's some cracks in it, but it seems that some damage also got reflected back to her as well, and we see Arlo cough up a bit of blood. So, Flame Claw can definitely wear out the barrier, but it doesn't seem to be as strong as John was. You know, because John can definitely more easily break through the barriers. But Remy and Blake are right there with each other, once again charging up the electro beam, and they launch it at her, which she does have time to dodge, but she doesn't have time to avoid the barrier wave. She then crashes into the wall, and everyone but Blake stands to watch the dust settle on Farah, leaning against the wall. But that's when Arlo realizes she's regenerating, and she gets back up, and it's time for round 2. Again, to point out to my credit with the regeneration, more focusing on the person's ability. This regen is green, like Farah's hair. So I do definitely think that you know, conversion's getting more perfected with the Bureau. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, so now real quick, before we get on to the last part of the episode, I do want to talk about their group one more time to re-bring up the possibility of one of them dying today. And right now, Blake took a very heavy hit today. And it's not the worst hit that we've seen a person take in the series. Blake has come back from worse. However, he's come back from worse when he had immediate and quick access to healing. He can't stand much right now. His passive healing that he has is significantly weaker than the passive healing that his ability grants John, because John can buff it. John gets a buff from it. So it's hard to say, but right now Blake does have the biggest flag. It's definitely there. Now, some people have brought up there is still the possibility of Elaine showing up to heal them, but we won't really know that until it happens, if she will or not. Right now, though, I do think it's very unfortunate. Things aren't looking good for Blake. if they don't leave right now, and judging by Farah regenerating, it doesn't look like they can leave right now. But if they don't leave right now, I think Blythe could be in a much worse situation. We're just going to have to wait and see. They can't go to a hospital. Elaine probably doesn't want to be involved in this. She did say if it's urgent, they can call her for backup. But she did say, I don't want to be involved in this. So, we are going to have to wait and see. We are going to have to wait and see what happened. But right now, it is, and also Doc's gone. Right now, things aren't looking good for Blythe. And like I said in my discussion with Ty, Blythe does unfortunately seem to be the obvious choice to kill off, because Blythe hasn't done everything he wants to do. But Blythe's arc is kind of finished. It's kind of like the main growing points to Blythe have been seen. Everyone else still kind of has to change and grow up a little bit. And Blythe certainly does too. I'm not saying that Blythe is a perfect character. Now we can get rid of him. But I am saying Blythe's arc compared to everyone else is more over. We've seen Blythe grow. Who more to be the catalyst for everyone's growth than the person who's kind of done the most for everyone? And I don't say like he's done the most for John more than Sarah. I'm saying like when it comes to helping out everyone, Blythe's always been there for everyone. Even when some of them didn't deserve it. So, again, we have to wait and see. In the next part, Uru does not even care at this point. She knows we know how the fight would have gone. So we've seen it 1,000 times. We know what happens. John is just seen wrecking Zeke. He is fucking him up. Like, honestly, probably the worst that we've seen Zeke get. Like, literally, Zeke is getting the episode 155 treatment. Like, he is getting John B. Royals bodied right now. And this did make me raise an eyebrow. One thing did make me raise an eyebrow in this. John yells at Zeke for ratting him out to the bureau. Or it seems like it. And like, I get it. I do. I get it. I get like John, like, kind of just taking out his anger. But I'm also kind of like, John, you told them to do this. Like, you expected this. Like, this is what you wanted to happen. Why are you mad? I get why John's mad. I do. I just think it's really, really funny that, like, once again, we're seeing John asking someone to do something and then getting mad when they do it. I love you still, John. But Zeke, of course, tries to talk his way out of this. And of course, John doesn't listen to this, doesn't listen to a word. But I do want to give Zeke credit for one thing. We gotta give Zeke props when props are due. Even after all of this, after flexing everything about like becoming part of the bureau, about like how he still has all this power and everything, him being like, I'm better than all of you. After all of that, he still tries to play John. He still tries to change sides, so to speak, for the smallest moment. And you know what? I don't respect the player, Zeke, but I respect the hustle. Once again, getting your shit rocked, but you still have the guts, the stupidity to say, John, I did this for you. You could have had everything. I tried to do this for your own good. John, you have the power. You have the power. You could have had everything. Like, Zeke still tries to play up to John. And I gotta give Zeke props for the hustle. Can't respect the player, but I respect the game. I respect the game, Zeke. You earned points for that. I guess we can take those few points off of your negative billion point deficit, Anyway, but in all of this, John, of course, tells us how he really feels. How he is normally seen telling us how he really feels. By lashing out. He once again is in the mindset that power is all everyone cares about, especially when it comes to the Bureau. And that's true. We've seen that with Farah, we've seen that with Valerie, we've seen that throughout all of UnOrdinary when it comes to the Bureau. And John tells us possibly one of the saddest things we've seen from his perspective. I'm not saying it's the saddest things, but when we look at everything that John's been through recently, this is up there. And what he tells Zeke is, what good is power if you can still lose everything, if you have nothing to protect, to care for? And as we see this, we see that he's thinking about his parents and Sarah, thinking about everything that the Bureau has taken from him, or that have been forced to eject his life because of the Bureau. We see that John is still affected by the viewpoint that he's weak, that he's powerless to do anything for those around him, especially in a time where John had a moment that he wanted to become stronger because he wanted to be better. And even with how strong he is, John still feels so vulnerable and so pathetic and weak that he can't do anything. Especially now that he's come to terms with his ability. He's accepted it, he's embraced who he is, he's embraced his power, he's embraced the gift from his mom. But John feels like he has nothing to show for it. And obviously it's led to a very bad relapse. It's led to John reverting back. It's led to John slipping. It's led to John not thinking long term, to getting in a bad situation, because we don't have time to focus on this. Because Headmaster Sylvia has arrived. She's made her way onto the scene. And she tells John that she's not going to be lenient with him like Vaughn was, and she won't tolerate him. He tells her off and he wobbles up. He's not looking great. And she does say that it's a shame because he could have become the pride of Wellston. Quick side note, it definitely seems like John's not staying now, but I still think that my initial hunch that she had plans for John were still correct. Of course, John refuses to be a slave to the system and says possibly the worst thing that you could say in this situation. He tells her, like, over my dead body, which I don't think is going to happen, but John isn't looking great. A lot of people have said he has Zeke's defense, like he should be good now, and that's true, but he still has a lot of damage. And Zeke wasn't even his first. Like, John knows his situation. John didn't choose Zeke because he knew that Zeke's ability would be perfect for the situation. John chose Zeke because he had no other choice. John didn't say, Zeke, that'll do, that'll work fine. John said, this will have to do. So, yeah. Now, Sylvia then sends 3 officers to arrest him. These are officers in police uniforms, not the guys in the armor that he was fighting earlier or anything like that. We don't know how strong they are. Possibly more high rankers like the ones that were there to arrest Vaughn. But we don't really get power levels or anything. But John then powers up again. But he begins to see only darkness. And he doesn't see anything or hear anything else around him, wondering what's happened to him. Now, it seems like Sylvia has some kind of ability that removes a person's senses or kind of like deprives them of them, because John specifically does say he can't see or hear anything. He specifically says that. I don't think this is some kind of like domain expansion, darkness eterna type thing or something like that. I think this is kind of like a mental ability to take away a person's senses and kind of like rob them blind of everything, basically. So yeah. Now, this does beg the question if Ison's ability will be useful here, because we did see that for a brief moment, John was able to lock onto one of the persons. But once the darkness kind of begins to like take him over, it's gone. That could just be like a brief moment of like, oh, that's kind of showing the severity of the situation. Or since Isen's ability Hunter does seem to like help enhance the 5 senses. We've seen that with like, sight, hearing, even smell recently with Isen. Just kind of like offhanded, but it does make me think, like, what if Hunter might not be effective here? Like, people did bring that up, but if Hunter isn't helpful, I do still think that John will be able to rely on aura sensing, because that's not based on any of the 5 senses. That is something exclusively unique to John. So I do think, like, we're gonna have to wait and see. And while I think it's gonna be hard, I wouldn't be surprised if John... So it's gonna be hard. I wouldn't be surprised if John doesn't make it out of this, but I do still think he can manage his way in this situation. We are going to have to wait and see. Or, John and Arlo could make sacrifice plays, and both of them could get captured by the Bureau while the trio escape. Season 3 ends off with everyone getting them back? Who knows? Who knows? But there are 2 more things that I want to cover in this episode. So Defensive Conjurer on Reddit is the first person that I saw bring this up. And honestly, they brought up a lot of really good points. Well, they brought this to like the attention of a lot of people on Reddit. I saw it and I was like, hold up, you could be onto something here. So they brought up that Sylvia could be a part of another family directly associated with the Bureau. And because they pointed out that Sylvia has the similar hair color and eyes of Leon, the head of the Bureau. And honestly, that's pretty terrifying, and it would make sense why the Bureau is so, like, fond of her, and why she's so fond of the Bureau. There could be that kind of, like, family establishment kind of there, Now, this could also mean that Leon could not be a jobber after all. I've thrown out the idea that what if Leon is just, like, nothing? Like, what if he's just kind of like, weak, but like, he's like a figurehead. He's like a puppet for the Bureau to use, while like real people pull the strings behind, like stronger people. It's just something to think about real quick. And obviously I'm putting them on screen right now because Sylvia has been revealed in the actual series now, in the regular episode releases. So you guys are seeing it right now too. Now, but yeah, we have seen siblings carry similar color palettes before, Jane, and Cameron. So, yeah, good job. Good find, Conjurer. Now, the last thing I want to touch on. I brought this up at the beginning. I hope you guys took that note. Based on the fights in this episode and other events that have happened in this last chunk of the story, I think it's fair to say that Uru has given us a lot of hints that everyone is stronger now. Everyone's had some form of a level up. John can do strength enhancements now. He obviously is stronger. Like, that lightning stuff, we've never seen that from John before. Arlo has the barrier wave. He's getting more unique. Arlo's mastery of his ability is getting better. Ison brought up, like, the scent earlier. Uru's been throwing little hints and everything throughout the episode. But while I do think the fandom as a whole is expecting everyone to have leveled up a bit, and I do think that everyone is going to be a higher level at the end of season 2, I think that one triumphs them all, in all honesty. Not because it's the biggest jump, not because it's like the most dramatic thing or anything, but I think this one is like the best because I think there's a new god tier to join the ranks. And I think that none other than Remy has officially ascended to God tier. Now, my reasoning behind this is because I noticed upon rereading, and like I even brought this up in my discussion with Ty, Remy's lightning looks drastically different. It's taken a drastic turn in terms of design and look since season 1. Originally, we saw that her lightning was more thin, small like surges of it and everything like kind of covering around her. But lately it's become thicker and more wild in its appearance. Now, this is definitely chalked up to a simple change in design. That is true. I did kind of go back. We have, like, it seems like the design of Lightning itself has changed. But even beyond that, I think that Remy's Lightning obviously looks stronger than it was previously. Now, let's go over my proof and my evidence right now. Now, as I mentioned before, Remy's Lightning lately has been thicker. It surges more wildly around her and fully than normal. It looks more powerful than hers in season 1. It looks more powerful than Byron's in their encounter, which was based off of Ray's. And it even looks stronger than Ray's Lightning in his last fight that we saw in episode 280 with Kuyo. But even then, we can take a look at Remy's Lightning in episode 262 at Rowden Hill when her and Arlo were dampened. Her Lightning still follows the same design pattern that the current Lightning is used. It looks more kind of like lightning and not really like a little that we saw in season 1. But it's much smaller, it's much less sporadic than her current Lightning is. And if Remy has truly surpassed Ray now, who was a level 5.8 at the time of his death, Uru has confirmed that, or Uru has said that Ray's level that we saw was his level at the time of his death. I think it's safe to say that she's moved into the realm of God tier. If she surpassed Ray, I think the change in her Lightning, the drastic difference between her Lightning and her Lightning now and Ray's Lightning when he died, Remy's Lightning looks stronger. So I think Remy is a God tier now. That's it. Remy's a God tier. Now, rant is over. And all in all, this episode is really good at delivering a good bit with the trios fight, and also beautifully sets up the next part with Farah regenerating against everyone, and John getting into another insane situation. The cliffhangers definitely add to the desire to want to read the next episode. Overall, though, this episode is still really good. But I do think compared to recent episodes, it's not mind-blowing or anything. I think episode 343 is going to be mind-blowing. Who knows? We're just going to have to wait and see. But overall, I give episode 342 a level 8.5. So, that will be it for the review and discussion. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Let me know what you guys think about my thoughts, because if you guys disagree, if you guys don't think Remy's a God tier, I mean, you're wrong, but I respect it. I respect your right to be wrong. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments, and as always, see you, Space Cowboy.